The Galactic Concord Chamber hung in the silent dark above Viridia Prime, a ring of polished obsidian and shimmering light that circled a planet of blue oceans and white clouds. Inside, 17 alien species sat in tiered arcs, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some armored in chitin, others wrapped in flowing energy fields, a few barely more than shifting shadows behind transparent shields. At the center of it all stood a single human. Ambassador Elias Rourke adjusted his simple gray suit, the only soft thing in a room built for intimidation. He had traveled 3 weeks through folded space to be here, carrying data crystals, diplomatic credentials, and hope. Earth had followed every rule, paid every fee, and answered every summons. They had believed in the Concord's promise, peace through unity. But something felt wrong. The air hummed with tension, not the usual diplomatic buzz. The delegates avoided his gaze. Even the Virelians, tall, silver-eyed beings who had once called humans promising, stared straight ahead, their long fingers steepled like blades. Then High Speaker Vexus rose. Her voice, translated through the chamber's universal field, was smooth as glass but cold as vacuum. The Galactic Concord convenes this session to address a grave violation by the Terran species. Rourke's stomach dropped. Violation? High Speaker, we were not notified of any. The Prime Accord forbids the development of quantum singularity weaponry, Vexus continued, ignoring him. Yet 3 solar cycles ago, your outpost Gamma-7 activated a prototype capable of collapsing localized spacetime. This act threatens the stability of the entire sector. Rourke's eyes widened. That's impossible. Gamma-7 was a terraforming research station. We were testing atmospheric resonance fields, harmless energy pulses to restore dead worlds. There was no weapon. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward. Others shifted uneasily. Vexus raised a hand. We have evidence. She gestured, and a hologram bloomed above the floor, grainy footage of a human vessel launching a device into a barren moon. A flash, then nothing. The moon vanished, gasps filled the room. That's not our tech, Rourke said, stepping forward. That device has Virelian power signatures. Look at the harmonic decay pattern. It matches your fleet's warp cores, not ours. Silence. Vexus didn't flinch. The Concord's forensic division confirms Terran origin. Your denial only deepens your guilt. Rourke reached into his inner pocket. I have logs from Gamma-7's final transmission. They show an unmarked fleet attacking the station hours before the incident. They destroyed our data core, but a backup survived. It's on this crystal. He held it up, small and silver, catching the chamber's light. Before he could move toward the evidence dock, a deep chime echoed through the hall. The vote is called, Vexus announced. Rourke froze. Wait, you haven't reviewed the evidence. This isn't procedure. But the delegates were already activating their voting orbs. Lights flickered, amber, crimson, violet, each one casting a glow on impassive faces. Rourke watched, heart pounding, as orb after orb turned red. Unanimous. The Terran species is hereby declared a Tier 0 existential threat, Vexus intoned. All interstellar rights are revoked. Trade, travel, and communication with Earth and its colonies are forbidden. A blockade will be enforced immediately. Rourke's mouth went dry. Tier 0 meant they were no longer considered a civilization. They were a hazard. Like a rogue asteroid. Like a plague. You can't do this, he whispered, though no one heard him over the rising hum of departing delegates. 2 armored enforcers, hulking beings with obsidian carapaces, stepped forward. Ambassador Rourke, you will return to your vessel. It is under escort. He didn't resist. What was the point? As they led him through echoing corridors past murals of galactic unity that now felt like cruel jokes, his mind raced. Who attacked Gamma-7? Why frame humanity? And why did every species vote without question? Outside his ship, the Dawn Chaser, waited under the shadow of a conquered dreadnought. The enforcers guided him aboard and sealed the hatch behind him. Alone in the cockpit, Rourke slumped into the pilot's chair, staring at the planet below. Blue. Beautiful. Doomed. Then a soft ping broke the silence. A message. Encrypted. Unknown origin. He hesitated, then opened it. Text scrolled across his screen. Plain and stark, they lied about the weapon. Find the truth before silence becomes extinction. No signature. No trace. Just those words. Rourke leaned back, breath shallow. Someone inside the Concord knew. Someone was helping, but who? And how much time did Earth have before the blockade turned from containment to annihilation? He powered up the engines. The Dawn Chaser lifted from the docking arm, flanked by two sleek Concord interceptors. Below, Viridia Prime shrank into a jewel of blue and white. Ahead, only darkness. Yet in that darkness, a single thread of hope remained. He glanced at the data crystal in his palm. Still warm, still intact. They thought they'd silenced humanity with a vote. But votes could be undone. Truths could be uncovered. And sometimes, all it took was one word to start a storm. Rourke set a course for the outer rim, where old allies might still listen, where secrets festered in the cracks of empires. He didn't know what he'd find, but he knew one thing for certain. The Conquered hadn't just betrayed humanity. They'd made a mistake. And mistakes, in the cold void of space, had a way of coming back, faster than light, sharper than steel and louder than silence. On Earth, the sky had changed, not in color or shape, but in feeling. Where once satellites and cargo haulers streaked across the atmosphere like silver birds, now only silent. Angular ships hung in orbit. Conquered enforcers, watching, waiting. No trade came in, no signals went out without being scanned, delayed, or erased. The world held its breath. In a hidden lab beneath the ruins of Old Geneva, Dr. Mira Kelton stared at a cracked screen, her fingers flying over a keyboard cobbled together from scrap. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Not since the Concord's verdict. Not since the news feeds went dark with panic and the streets filled with fear. Mira had once worked for Earth's Xenolinguistics Bureau, translating alien dialects and decoding ancient signals from dead worlds. But she'd been dismissed after questioning the Concord's official reports on the Gamma 7 incident. Conspiracy thinking, they'd called it. Unfounded doubt. Now, with Earth cut off and labeled a threat, her doubt felt like the only sane thing left. She pulled up the last known transmission from Gamma 7. It was corrupted, fragmented, but not beyond repair. Using a decryption key she'd built from old Concord training manuals, she began peeling back layers of noise. Frame by frame, word by word, the truth emerged. The station hadn't been testing weapons. It had been calibrating a resonance field to revive Mars's dead soil. The device shown in the Concord's evidence video? It didn't match Gamma 7's schematics. Its power core pulsed at a frequency used only by Varelian warships. And the attack, captured in a split-second burst before the feed died, showed ships with no markings. But their hull shapes, their engine trails, their flight patterns, all pointed to one origin, Virelia. Mira's hands trembled. The Varelians hadn't just lied. They'd staged the whole thing, but why? Before she could dig deeper, alarms blared through the lab. Red lights flashed. Someone had breached the outer tunnel. She slammed the data into a shielded drive and shoved it into her coat. Then she ran. Through dripping corridors, past rusted pipes and flickering bulbs, she reached a service elevator that hadn't worked in years, except she'd fixed it in secret. It groaned to life, carrying her up to a storm drain that emptied into the Rhine River. Rain poured as she climbed out, water soaking her to the skin. She needed help. Someone who knew the Concord from the inside. Someone who wouldn't turn her in. Her mind went to Cale. He'd been a pilot in the Concord's patrol fleet, 3rd tier, low rank, but sharp-eyed. He'd defected 6 months ago after witnessing something he couldn't forget. Earth's intelligence had picked him up, given him shelter, but kept him isolated. Mira had interviewed him once just before her dismissal. He'd spoken in riddles then. Now she hoped he'd speak plainly. She found him in a derelict freighter parked in a dry dock outside Rotterdam. The ship smelled of oil and stale air. Kyle sat in the cockpit cleaning a pulse pistol with calm hands. He looked up as she entered, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes alert. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Neither should the Concord," Mira shot back. She tossed the drive onto the console. Gamma 7 was sabotaged. By Varelians, Cale didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly. "I saw it." "You what?" "Not the attack, but the aftermath. I was on patrol near the sector when Gamma 7 went dark. I got close before the official cordon dropped. Saw debris with Varelian alloy signatures. Reported it. My commander told me to forget it. Said I was seeing ghosts." Mira sat heavily in the co-pilot seat. "They're framing us. To justify the blockade. To isolate Earth, or worse, Kale said. They're clearing the board. Humans are the only species that ask too many questions. Build too fast, trust too little. The Concord likes order. You don't fit. Mira pulled up the decrypted logs on the ship's main screen. There's more. The Concord's public records show Gamma 7's device as quantum singularity class. But look at the energy output graph. It's not a weapon. It's a terraformer. The spike they showed, it's a harmonic echo, only happens when you overload a resonance field on purpose. Someone forced it to blow. Kale leaned in. So they destroyed their own fake weapon to make it look real. Exactly. They worked through the night, cross-referencing ship logs, energy signatures, diplomatic timestamps. The trail led not just to Varelia, but to a secret meeting held 3 weeks before the vote. Only 5 Concord members attended. All founding species, all with vested interests in keeping humanity small, quiet, and dependent. But one name kept appearing in encrypted comms, Oryx Station. The Concord's central data nexus. If the full truth was anywhere, it was there. We can't get near Oryx, Kyle said. It's guarded like a god's tomb. Not if we don't go as humans, Mira replied. We go as waste haulers. Every Concord station uses recyclers. They're invisible. Kyle gave a dry laugh. You've been thinking about this. I've been running out of time. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Kale forged clearance codes using old fleet protocols. Mira rewrote their bios to match a defunct recycling guild from the Kessar system. They painted the freighter in dull gray, covered its human markings, and loaded it with real scrap. Old reactor parts, broken drones, even smelly organic waste to sell the disguise. The night before launch, Kale handed Mira a small earpiece. If we get separated, this will keep us linked. Short range but untraceable, she took it. Why are you doing this? You could have stayed hidden. He looked out the viewport at the Concorde ships hanging in the sky, because silence is how they win. And I'm tired of being quiet. They launched at dawn, slipping past Earth's new borders under the cover of a scheduled debris sweep. The Concorde scanners pinged them once, twice, then cleared them. To the watchers above, they were just another garbage scow, unworthy of attention. For 3 days, they drifted through dead zones and quiet lanes, avoiding patrols, conserving power. On the 4th day, Oryx Station appeared, a massive ring of black metal and glowing conduits, spinning slowly against the stars. As they approached the waste intake bay, a voice crackled over comms. Kessar Recycler 447, state your manifest. Kale responded in flawless Kessari dialect, voice steady. Organic sludge, reactor casings, and hull fragments from Sector 9. Authorization code Kappa 79. A pause. Then clearance granted. Dock at Bay 12. They exhaled together. Inside the station, the air smelled of ozone and metal. Workers, mostly low-caste aliens in stained coveralls, moved like ghosts through dim corridors. No one looked at them. No one cared. Mira and Kale followed the waste route deep into the station's underbelly, where pipes groaned and lights flickered. According to Kale's stolen schematics, the central archive was 3 levels up, behind a maintenance shaft. They reached the shaft. Kale pried open the grate. You go first. I'll watch the corridor. Mira climbed, heart hammering. At the top, she found a narrow service tunnel that opened near the archive's outer wall. Through a vent, she saw rows of crystalline data stacks pulsing with soft blue light. She pulled out a thin probe and inserted it into a port. The drive synced. Files began downloading, terabytes of logs, votes, secret communications. Then, footsteps. She froze. 2 armored enforcers rounded the corner below. They weren't patrolling. They were searching. Kale must have seen them too. He tapped his earpiece twice. Danger. Mira yanked the probe free. Too soon. The download wasn't complete. But she had enough to see one name repeated in high-clearance logs. Varelian High Command. And one phrase over and over, Project Resonance. Before she could move, an alarm blared. They'd been spotted. Kale burst into the corridor, firing his pistol. Blue bolts lit the hallway. One enforcer fell. The other returned fire. Go, he shouted. Back the way you came. Mira scrambled down the shaft as shots rang out behind her. She heard Kyle grunt, then a heavy thud. She didn't look back. She ran through dripping tunnels, clutching the drive like a lifeline. At the freighter, she powered up the engines just as more enforcers flooded the bay. The ship lifted, shuddering, as pulse fire scorched the hull. She punched the thrusters, breaking orbit, leaving Oryx Station and Kale behind. Tears blurred her vision as she jumped to warp. Hours later, alone in the void, she played the last message Kale had sent through the earpiece before the signal died. Static. Then his voice, weak but clear. Resonance. It's not a weapon. It's a key. Then silence. Mira stared at the stars, the drive warm in her hand. They'd taken Kale, but they hadn't taken the truth, and now she knew what to look for. Resonance. Whatever it was the heart of the lie, and maybe, just maybe, the key to ending it. Mira drifted in the cold dark between stars, the freighter's engines silent to avoid detection. The drive Kale had helped her steal sat on the console, blinking softly like a heartbeat. She had replayed his last words a dozen times. Resonance. It's not a weapon. It's a key. But a key to what? She combed through the partial data dump again. Buried in layers of encrypted Concord logs was a reference to something called the Harmonic Codex, a protocol so old it predated the current Concord by centuries. It was mentioned only in emergency override files, always paired with the word resonance. One line stood out: Codex activation requires spoken command in Builder's tongue at Central Nexus. The Builder's tongue. No one knew what that was. The Concord claimed the original founders had vanished long ago, leaving behind only ruins and rules. But if the Codex existed and if it could be activated, it might reveal everything the Concord had hidden, including the truth about Gamma 7. But Oryx Station was too dangerous now. She needed help. Someone who understood old Concord systems. Someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. She remembered a name from her early days in Xenotech. Joran. He'd been a lead engineer for Concord comms arrays before vanishing after a dispute over data censorship. Rumor said he lived in the belt now, fixing broken ships for credits and silence. She sent a coded ping to an old frequency. 2 days later, a reply came. Dock at Rock 7, come alone. Rock 7 was a hollowed-out asteroid in the outer Sol belt, spinning slowly in the sun's weak light. Mira landed the freighter in a shadowed bay, her hand near her sidearm. The airlock hissed open. Joran stood there, thin, gray-haired, eyes sharp behind cracked goggles. He wore patched coveralls and smelled of oil and ozone. You're the one who stole data from Oryx, he said, not as a question. Mira nodded. And you're the one who built half the Concord's network, he grunted. Built it. Then watched them turn it into a cage. He stepped aside. Come in, before someone sees you. Inside, the asteroid was a maze of wires, screens, and half-finished machines. A small heater hummed in the corner. Joran poured 2 cups of bitter tea. Why are you here? She showed him the logs, the mention of the Harmonic Codex, Kale's last words. Joran's eyes narrowed. He tapped a screen, pulling up schematics Mira had never seen. Blueprints of Oryx Station's core, marked with symbols she didn't recognize. The Codex isn't a weapon, he said slowly. It's a truth engine, built by the first Concord founders. If activated, it forces every connected system to broadcast raw, unfiltered data. No edits, no lies. It was meant for emergencies, like if the Council ever turned corrupt. Mira's breath caught. That's exactly what happened. Joran nodded. But it's never been used. The Concord buried it deep. Only the central nexus on Oryx can trigger it. And it needs a spoken word in the Builder's tongue, a language no one speaks anymore. Then how do we activate it? Mira asked. Joran smiled faintly. Maybe we don't need to speak it. Maybe we just need to mean it. He explained his plan. They'd pose as waste recyclers again, this time during the Concord Unity Gala, a rare event where even low-caste workers were allowed near the upper levels for cleanup. With forged credentials and Joran's old access codes, they might slip into the core chamber long enough to input the activation sequence. It was madness. But it was all they had. They spent a week preparing. Joran rebuilt their freighter's ID tags, mimicking a Kasari waste guild that had recently been approved for gala duty. Mira memorized service routes and guard rotations. They packed light, tools, comms, and the data drive. On the day of the gala, they approached Oryx Station under a sky full of arriving luxury yachts and diplomatic shuttles. Concord scanners barely glanced at their ship. To them, it was just another garbage hauler. Inside, the station buzzed with music and light. Aliens in fine robes mingled in grand halls, drinking nectar and discussing trade. Mira and Joran, in stained coveralls and face masks, moved through service corridors unnoticed. Their target was the core sanctum, a sealed chamber at the heart of Oryx, where the main data nexus pulsed like a living thing. According to Joran, the activation terminal was hidden behind a maintenance panel near the central column. They reached the sanctum's outer ring. 2 enforcers stood guard, but their attention was on the gala below. Joran created a small power surge in a nearby conduit. Sparks flew. The guards moved to investigate. "Now," he whispered. They slipped inside. The chamber was vast and quiet, lit only by the soft glow of the nexus, a pillar of swirling light and crystal. Mira found the panel, pried it open, and plugged in the drive. Lines of code scrolled across a small screen. "Sequence initiated," Joran said, watching the readout. "But the final step? It's asking for a voice command." In Builder's tongue, Mira stared at the prompt. She didn't know the language. No one did. Panic rose in her chest. They'd come so far, failed so close. Then she remembered Kale's voice. "It's a key. Not to unlock a door, but to unlock truth." What word carried truth across all species? What word meant the same to a human? A Varelian, a Kasari. Not peace, too vague. Not justice, too twisted by power. Not freedom, too easily faked. Then it came to her. Enough. It wasn't in any ancient tongue. But it was honest. It was final. It was human. She leaned toward the mic. "Enough," she said. The chamber trembled, lights flared. The nexus pillar blazed white. A deep hum filled the air, vibrating through the floor, the walls, the bones. Joran grabbed her arm. It worked. Across the station, alarms began to wail, but not the usual kind. These were different. Softer. Sadder. On every screen in Oryx Station, raw data began to stream. Unfiltered logs, hidden orders, private messages. The Varelian Admiral's confession. The fake Gamma-7 footage. The secret vote to isolate Earth before any trial. Guests at the gala stopped dancing. Delegates froze mid-toast. Enforcers lowered their weapons, staring at the truths unfolding on every surface. Mira and Joran ran. They didn't look back as they fled through panicked corridors. Ships began launching from the station, not in formation, but in chaos. Some species turned on others. Accusations flew in a dozen languages. Back on their freighter, Mira watched Oryx shrink in the viewport. The codex was active. The truth was out, but Joran's face was grim. "It won't last," he said. "The Conquered has a failsafe. If the codex runs too long, it triggers a neural purge, wipes every connected mind to stop the spread." "How long?" Mira asked. 72 hours. She stared at the stars. They had 3 days to make the galaxy believe what it had just seen, or billions would die. Not from war, but from silence. And this time, silence wouldn't be the Conquered's weapon. It would be their tomb. The truth spread like fire through dry grass. Across the galaxy, every ship, station, and city linked to the Conquered network saw the same thing. Raw, unfiltered data pouring from the harmonic codex. Footage of Varelian ships attacking Gamma-7. Secret orders to fabricate evidence. Private messages where high-speaker Vexes called humans a useful distraction while planning to seize Earth's rare mineral belts. Panic erupted. On the Kasari homeworld, citizens stormed government buildings demanding to know why their leaders had voted without question. On the icy plains of Threll, entire fleets refused new commands, their crews watching the confessions of their own admirals. Even the silent Zorn Collective, beings who communicated only through light pulses, sent out a rare public signal. We were misled, but not everyone welcomed the truth. The Varelian High Command went dark. Their fleets pulled back, forming a defensive ring around their home system. Other founding species followed, cutting their networks, sealing their borders. The Concord was fracturing, but not fast enough. Mira and Joran watched it all from the freighter's cockpit, drifting near the edge of Sol space. They had returned to Earth, but not to land. Too dangerous. Instead, they hovered in the shadow of Jupiter, using old military relays to monitor the chaos. "We have less than 2 days now," Joran said, rubbing his tired eyes. "The Codex Purge countdown is at 46 hours. Mira nodded. She hadn't slept. Every hour felt like sand slipping through her fingers. We need to reach the neutral systems, the ones who didn't vote, like the Glimmer Moons or the Dust Singers. If they believe us, they might pressure the others to stand down before the purge hits. Joran shook his head. They won't listen to a human. Not after everything. Then I won't speak as a human, Mira said. I'll speak as a witness. She began drafting a message. Not a plea, not a threat, but a record. She compiled the clearest evidence. The attack logs, the forged schematics, the Varelian Admiral's own voice admitting the frame-up. She added Kale's final transmission. She even included the Concord's own emergency protocols that proved the codex was real and not a human trick. Then she encoded it into every known language, every signal type, every broadcast frequency the neutral worlds used. Joran helped her boost the signal through abandoned deep space relays. This will light us up like a sun, he warned. The Concord loyalists will find us. Let them, Mira said. If they want to silence the truth, they'll have to kill everyone who's already seen it. The message went out. Within hours, replies trickled in. The Dust Singers sent a harmonic pulse acknowledgement. The Glimmer Moons opened a secure channel. Even the reclusive ocean mines of Xylos surfaced from their methane seas to ask for more data. Hope flickered, but then the Varelians struck. Not with ships. With lies. A new broadcast flooded the networks, a fake message made to look like it came from Earth. In it, a distorted voice claiming to be Mira declared that humans had built the Codex as a weapon to control the galaxy. We will reset your minds, the voice said coldly. You will obey. Mira stared at the screen in horror. They're turning the Codex against us, Joran cursed. Now the undecided will think we triggered it to take over. Panic spread again, but this time it was aimed at Earth. Fleets that had paused now turned toward Sol. The blockade tightened. Conquered loyalists called for immediate action. Shut down the Codex, destroy the source. Mira knew what the source meant. Earth. She had to act fast. We need to show them it's not us, she said. We need to prove the message is fake. Joran pulled up the signal analysis. It's being rebroadcast from a Varelian relay near the Helix Nebula. If we can jam it at the source. It's a trap, Mira said, but it's the only chance. They plotted a course. Fast. Quiet. They'd use the asteroid belt as cover, then jump near the nebula's edge. Joran modified the freighter's engines to run cold. No heat signature, no comms, just silent drift. They arrived under cover of cosmic dust. The relay station hung like a black spider in the red glow of the nebula. No ships nearby. Too easy. Mira sent a microdrone to scan the structure. It returned with bad news. The relay wasn't just broadcasting the fake message. It was also sending a homing pulse directly to their location. They knew we'd come, Joran whispered. Engines roared to life behind them. 3 Varelian destroyers dropped out of warp, weapons charging. Go, Mira shouted. Joran slammed the thrusters. The freighter shot forward, weaving through debris. Pulse fire lit the nebula. One blast grazed their hull. Alarms blared. Mira worked the comms, slicing into the relay's control system through the drone's link. She found the fake message loop, the homing beacon, the override codes. Her fingers flew. 30 seconds, Joran yelled. She typed the final command, delete and replace with the real evidence. The relay flickered. The fake message cut off. In its place, the true logs played across every channel, tagged with unforgeable Concord verification keys. The Varelian ships hesitated. On every neutral world, screens changed. The lie vanished. The truth returned, but the destroyers didn't retreat. Their lead ship opened fire. The freighter shuddered. Engine 2 failed. Oxygen alarms blared. We're not going to make it, Joran said, voice calm. Mira looked at the countdown on her screen. 28 hours until the Codex purge. She made a choice. Send the freighter on autopilot toward the sun, she said. Rig it to burn up. They'll think we're dead. Joran understood. He set the course, then grabbed an emergency pod. You first. They launched just as the hull cracked open. The pod tumbled into the nebula's haze. Invisible, powerless, silent. From inside, they watched the freighter streak toward the star and vanish in fire. The Varelian ship scanned the area, found nothing, and left. Mira and Joran floated in darkness. Low on air, no signal, no hope of rescue. But the truth was out there, and the countdown continued. Back on Earth, People watched the skies. Some wept, some prayed, some prepared for war. But in the conquered's heart, doubt had taken root. Species that once bowed to Varelian authority now questioned everything. Fleets stood down. Diplomats demanded emergency sessions. Even the High Speaker's own council turned against her. The Codex had done its job, but time was running out. Mira knew the purge wasn't just data loss. It would erase memories, personalities, the very thoughts of every being connected to the network. Billions would become empty shells. To stop it, someone had to shut it down, and only she knew how. But to reach Auric Station again, she'd need a ship, a crew, and a miracle. As the pod's oxygen ticked down, she made a final transmission, not to the galaxy, but to one person she hoped was still listening. A former Concord delegate from the Glimmer Moons, who had once traded rare crystals for Earth's music. If anyone could help, it was them. She sent the coordinates. Then she closed her eyes, waiting, not for death, but for a chance to say one last word before silence took everything. The pod drifted in the cold silence of the Helix Nebula, its oxygen levels dangerously low. Mira and Joran sat side by side, wrapped in thermal blankets, watching the stars through the small viewport. They had sent their message. Now they waited. Hours passed. Then a flicker on the comms panel. A soft chime. A signal. Not from Earth, not from the Conquered, but from a small, shimmering vessel shaped like a teardrop. The Glimmer Moon ship. It docked gently with the pod. A hatch opened. A being stepped through, tall, translucent, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. They carried no weapons. Only a data slate and a look of quiet resolve. "You are Mira Kelton," they said, voice like wind through glass. Mira nodded. "The truth you sent?" "It changed everything," the Glimmer said. "Many now see the lie, but the Codex countdown nears its end. If it purges, even those who believe will forget why." Joran coughed weakly. "We need to get to Auric Station. Shut it down before it's too late." The Glimmer nodded. "My ship is fast. And unseen. We go now." They left the pod behind and boarded the teardrop vessel. Inside, the walls glowed softly, and the air smelled of rain and metal. The Glimmer, whose name translated roughly as Lumen, guided the ship through folds of space no Conquered scanner could track. They spoke little, but their eyes held urgency. As they traveled, Mira reviewed the Codex files one last time. She saw the failsafe protocol clearly now. The purge wasn't just a reset. It was a final judgment. If the galaxy refused to accept the truth within 72 hours, the system would erase all who were connected, as if to start over with blank minds. 12 hours remained. When Auric Station came into view, it was in chaos. Ships of a dozen species circled it like vultures. Some fired on each other. Others tried to land, desperate to access the truth before it vanished. The station's lights flickered, unstable, dying. Lumen guided the ship through the mess, using blind spots and sensor ghosts to slip inside an old maintenance bay. No alarms sounded. No guards came. They moved quickly through empty halls. The gala was long over. The station felt like a tomb. At the core sanctum, the Nexus pillar pulsed erratically, its light dimming and flaring like a dying heart. The countdown glowed above it. 03-1744. Mira approached the terminal. "I have to shut it down." Joran placed a hand on her shoulder. "If you do, the truth goes back into the dark. They'll say it was all a trick. The Conquered might rebuild, and next time they'll be smarter." Mira looked at the numbers ticking down. "If I don't, billions lose their minds, their memories, their children, their love. Truth means nothing if there's no one left to hold it." She turned to Lumen. "Is there another way? Can we make them choose?" Lumen tilted their head. "The Codex does not force belief. It only shows what is. The choice was always theirs." Mira understood. She stepped to the console. Her fingers hovered over the shutdown command. Then she stopped. She remembered Kale's last word. "Enough!" She remembered the fear in Earth's eyes, the hope in the Dust Singer's signals, the Varelian Admiral's shame. This wasn't about shutting it down. It was about giving them one last chance to choose. She opened a broadcast channel, wide, deep, tied directly to the Codex core. "I am Mira Kelton of Earth," she said, her voice calm, clear, carrying across every world, every ship, every mind still listening. "You have seen the truth. You know what was done, what was hidden. What was stolen from us all? She paused. The countdown read 015903. We did not build this codex, we did not seek war. We only asked to be heard, and when you silenced us, we found a way to speak anyway. She looked at Joran, then at Lumen. But I will not let your fear destroy you, so I am ending this now. Her finger moved, not to delete, but to confirm. She deactivated the codex. The pillar's light faded. The hum stopped. The screens across the galaxy went dark. Silence. Then slowly, comms channels lit up again, not with lies, but with voices. A Kasari captain. We saw it. We know it's true. A Threll elder. Our fleet stands with Earth. Even a Varelian scientist broadcasting from a hidden lab. The High Command lied to us all. The truth remained. Not because of a machine, but because people chose to keep it. On Earth, crowds gathered in the streets, not in fear, but in quiet awe. The blockade ships powered down. One by one, they turned away. Weeks later, in a new hall built on the moon's far side, representatives from 23 species gathered, not as a conquered, but as something new. The Alliance of Open Skies. Mira stood before them, not as a hero, but as a witness. A delegate from the ocean mines rose. Their voice came through a translator, slow and deep. You had the power to force us to see. You chose not to. Why? Mira looked at the faces before her, some familiar, some strange, all watching. Because truth forced is not truth accepted. We wanted you to choose. Not because we needed you to believe us, but because you needed to believe yourselves. The delegate nodded, then asked, if you could say one word to define your people, what would it be? Mira thought of Gamma 7, of Kale, of the silence that almost won. She smiled. Enough. And in that word, the galaxy heard not anger, not pride, but peace. Years passed. Earth rebuilt, not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as a voice among many. Ships from 100 worlds visited its ports. Children learned alien songs. Old enemies shared meals, and high above, in the quiet dark, the stars burned as they always had. Unchanged, endless, waiting. But now, someone was listening.